Okay, here's the Star Megastar 45 round. Nothing in the chamber. Magazine is unloaded. I'm going to close the slide, decock it. What we're going to be talking about is this factory magazine right here, increasing the capacity from 12 rounds to 14 rounds. Okay, so I've disassembled the magazine, and you can see the angle at which it locks in. There's not much clearance. Now I'm going to demonstrate the P-14 so that you can see that the geometry is different. So while the magazine, most of the magazine dimensions are the same, that's where it clicks in on the factory slot. Hold on, I got to put the, when you put the magazine, push the magazine release in like I did, well, hold on. Okay, so since the magazine release catches the magazine at different points, when you put the P-14 magazine in the Megastar, when it clicks into that position on that magazine, your magazine's not going to be inserted high enough. And then, you know, you have the option of creating a new mag catch hole, but the problem you run into is when you over insert this magazine, it will prevent your slide lock. So you're not able, it interferes with it, and I'll show you why in just a second. So with the magazines disassembled, hold on, you can see that on this Megastar there's a cutout here, and there's a cutout. I mean, that portion is not cut out, so this portion right here is interfering with your slide lock, keeping it up. Now you could, in theory, cut this portion out, and I'm going to show you where this one's ambidextrous, this one's not. So we'll get them over here where they're the same. We'll see, you can see in relation to this diamond, this one's kind of straight across at the bottom, and this one is kind of below it. So you would have to change things, and you'd probably have to fill that in to get it to catch, since the new location would be right below it. But to me, it's just not worth doing that. You know, unless you have some real good machining skills, you could probably do it right. But if you already have a magazine, you can use this mod to increase your capacity. All right, so you can see the profile of the new P-14 mag interferes right here, so you're going to want to mark a line right down there and probably just even it off with what's the existing cut line that's already there. It's pretty hard to see, but I have my line marked. I used a Sharpie, but you can use whatever. Okay, you can see that after I've made that cutout on the P-14 magazine, for one, the magazine inserts fully, and secondly, the slide lock is not engaged. So now what we're going to do is try to determine how far we have to move this slot. And obviously cutting any of this stuff on a mill would probably be your best bet. But I have the trusty Walmart Dremel, because all my name brand Dremels tear up and this one don't. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to mark a line right here. Hold on. Okay, you can see my line. Okay, this is what you have to understand. Depending on the base plate that you're using, if you can, you know, find the base plate off of the Megastar is very slim, you could go with that dimension right there as far as marking your new line. Now if you're going to have to use, now, and also I don't know if you can find some other double stack thin metal base plates, but if you're using the P-14, as you can see, it's quite a bit thicker. So the only solution I know to do to this would be to make an angular cut in this plastic so it kind of diminishes. But you've got to decide that before you make your cut, because this is going to vary somewhat. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a little molded line on the side, and I'm going to cut just to the right side of that, and I'm just going to taper it off wherever I think it might work. Okay, that's the profile I came up with, and I had to, do a couple attempts of reinserting the mag. Just careful not to do too much at once, and I'm going to smooth it out with this little rotary Dremel attachment. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that. I did not take a ton of time. I considered it relatively easy. But that is going to be your, where you make your mark, your second mark with the pencil to determine how far to move it. And incidentally, this is probably going to work also. So you can see how far I'm going to have to move that up. And I don't have, I have some nice stuff to take measurements and stuff with, but it's going to be roughly it looks like a little less than this spanner that came with my Dremel. Alright, so I made me some reference lines. So as luck would have it for me, I have this generic spanner for this Dremel, and it appears to be the same size. So after I transferred this distance lower, which is that space right there, I should be able to come in right here and lay this out and then just start cutting it. Seeing what happens. With a little luck, it'll be right. But like I say, if I don't succeed in this, I can still use the internals from this magazine to modify my existing mag to a 14+1. So after I made my horizontal cuts, trying to keep it within here, which keep in mind you can always take off extra once you get to this point, and it's probably the less critical than the horizontal sides. But you see where I scored it on this end and around that corner. My plan is to cut through here diagonally and then break each of these pieces out and then come back in and true them up. And I would suggest making this a little smaller. You try to err on the side of safety so you can enlarge it, but this is my first time and I don't have machinery, so we're just going to see how it works out. Okay, so there's my diagonal cut. We're going to try to break those pieces out. Okay, looks like I made a mistake on my layout, so this will help y'all, but you can see, if you can see my original line, I'm going to make a reference mark on the frame. Obviously I took the whatever you call that out and took the grips off. You have to watch a video if you don't know how to do that. And I'm gonna move that up and try to reference my new hole with that. So it seems like what I did was make a simple error. So that's the factory position. This line indicates the bottom of the mag release cutout, and I'm going to slide this one up so you can see. Okay, so this right here is referencing the bottom of this mag cutout, but I made the mistake of having this line, putting it on the wrong side, so it actually should have been up here. There's probably enough metal for it to be strong enough, but if you don't make the same mistake I did, which was a simple layout error, you won't have this hole, you'll just have this one up here. And I haven't smoothed this out or anything yet, so I may weld that back up or something later, who knows. But this is just educational purpose. It's learning. Alright, I have my new mark right there. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to try to leave some metal and just shave a little off until it clicks so it'll latch in tightly. Okay, so there's my modified cut. Still haven't cleaned it up yet or anything, but I'm going to show you it inserted. And there is my line. All right, you can see my line. I'm past the original and it's clicking in, and it looks like, hold on. Okay, so there it is. It's locked in with the base plate fitting. There it is with the original Megastar base plate. All right, so one thing I would recommend you doing on your layout is referencing where the bottom of that magazine cut is when it's originally, when it's inserted, and then using that as a point of reference. Hold on. Using that as a reference to where you want your original to be, and just remember that your layout is going to be on the upside of your line, so you don't make the mistake that I made. But it didn't affect me. It was just the price of learning. And I would recommend when you do your original cutout, maybe be a bit more precise than I do, and don't take as much material, because as it turns out, I got very lucky and it fits perfectly on my first cut. But if I'd have cut too much, it might have allowed for some slop in there, but I'm going to reassemble it. Okay, so here is the magazine reassembled with the little modified base plate that came with it. It's plenty strong in my opinion. There's my two cuts. Like I said, I cut on the wrong side, so it ended up being over large, which doesn't affect it. The one thing you have to remember is you're going to have to keep the mag release pressed in to get past the original, unless you fill that with some metal, maybe weld that up with a piece. But I'm going to insert it now so you'll see. Okay, here it is. So it's going to want to latch into the first. You're going to have to depress the magazine release to get it to lock into the second. But it is locked in, and it does lock back. Alright, gun is clear. I'm going to close the slide so that we can see how this loaded magazine with 14 rounds loads into here. That's the first catch. You got to go past it. I mean, it locks in. It's the first one. You go past that just a hair, you should be able to bump it in. And that's it. Alright, I'm going to go on to say, when I do fill this in so that I don't have to manually bypass it as I insert the latch, and I'm talking about the original mag latch cutout, I believe I can take a piece of flat steel, weld it on there, have it pre-bent, secure it in there, and if I have to do any grinding, it's not that far from this end of the magazine, so with the follower out, I should be able to get down there and smooth out, especially since this is round, and one of those small sandpaper drums and a Dremel should fit in there pretty good, and it should work just fine. Alright, so I've just ground that to expose the bare metal so it can be ready to receive the weld, and I guess I'll go ahead and do it so we can make a complete video on this and be done with it. Alright guys, I got it welded up. A little bit of porosity in there, so I'm not bragging on my welding skills. I could have done better. TIG weld would be perfect for that, but I got it smoothed out and I got it deburred on the inside, so I believe that it'll work. Here we are, unloaded, and close the slide. And it locks in like it should. So I'm gonna call this a win.